On today's video, we'll be reading from Mickey and the Animal Spies by Anne Miller. Hello, today we are looking at codes and puzzles and how to send secret messages. And first up, we're going to be making one of these, a code wheel. You can make it so that the letters of the alphabet correspond to either other letters of the alphabet, like here, or numbers or symbols. And what you do is you make two so that your friend and yourself can send secret messages to each other. It's really easy to make a code wheel. You'll need a piece of paper, two pieces of paper if your friend is making one as well, which is always wise because you need to send your codes to someone. I'm actually using an envelope because when you cut out the circles, then you'll end up having double the amount too, but you could always put two pieces of paper together. You also need two circles to draw around, a bigger one and one that's slightly smaller. So I'm using this bowl. I'm going to draw my big circle around this edge and my smaller one around this edge. And then you need scissors, a pen, and a paper fastener, which is one of these things here. And what you need to do first is draw your circle on your paper or your two pieces of paper. So I'm going to do that now. Here we go. And then we're going to cut it out with the scissors. So I'll do my big one first, and then I'm going to do my smaller circle next to it. It's good if your circles can be quite similar in size, because the closer together your letters are on your two circles, the easier it is to work out your code. Next up, you need to cut out your circles with the scissors, taking care to do so. Younger ones among you might want to get some help cutting out because scissors can be sharp. I should really be showing you a close-up, but then you'd see how dry my hands are. I hope everyone out there has been washing their hands for 2 happy birthdays. Hands up if your hands are turning scaly from all the washing. I've got a really good tip actually. My hands aren't too dry at the moment because what I've done, my secret little top tip, is to put some Vaseline on the back of your hands, and that way you're sort of coating them in almost like a waterproof layer, and when you wash them they don't dry out so much. It helps to keep the moisture in, and actually it's worked a treat on my hands. So there is my bigger circle, and now I'm going to, and remember, because I cut it out of an envelope, I got two for the price of one. And now I'm going to cut out my inner circle, the smaller one, and like I say, the more similar the two circles are in size, the easier it will be when you're going to decipher your code. So next up, after you've done that, we're going to fold our circles into sections, and I'm going to do 32 sections, 26 of the letters of the alphabet, and then some extras so I can put some punctuation in. Okay, so I'm folding it once, twice, so now I've got quarters, 4 sections. Then I'm folding it again, so now I've got 8 sections. And now I'm folding it again, so now I've got 16 sections on my code wheel. And then unfold it, and on the 16 sections you've got to draw 2 letters of the alphabet each. So you've got to go all the way through the alphabet. So A, B, I mean, I'm sure you know the alphabet, you're intelligent people. And make sure that each one is on each side of your section, because that will make it easier for them to line up when your two circles are together. O, P, Q, R, S. Now, you could do it in 2 different colours for your outer circle and your inner circle, which is not a bad idea because it makes it a lot easier for when you're trying to decipher which letters correspond to which letters. So there we go. That is my alphabet. I've also done some punctuation. I've got a hashtag, an at, a full stop, a comma, exclamation mark, and a question mark. So now it's time to do my inner circle. The inner circle. This is the inner circle. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to fold it into 16ths and then do 2 letters per 16th. And I'm going to go lowercase this time because then it makes it easier. Or you could actually change the colour. Makes it easier to know from which wheel you're coding and which wheel you're solving, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go lowercase A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm actually doing this in real time, so you'll have to bear with me. But it does mean that you could actually do it with me in real time. If you wanted to, you could stop this and start again and do it at the same speed as me. All that remains to be done now is for me to attach the two circles together with a paper fastener through the middle, and then you can write secret messages to your friends. So for instance, if I told my friend, set your code wheel to capital A to lowercase y, and then if I wrote the message question mark A, they could translate it as hi. And if I wanted to, I could even write it in the other case. So I would write capital PQ, and they could translate it as lowercase hi. You can use symbols, you can use numbers, you can use whatever you want to correspond to your letters of the alphabet. Now, the reason that we are looking at coding today is because I'm going to read from the book Mickey and the Animal Spies by Anne Miller. And I've got a bit of an animal spy on my top, so it all fits in nicely. Let's have a listen. Mickey and the Animal Spies by Anne Miller. To break codes, you must be willing to see things from an unusual angle. Hildegard L. McTavish, Codebreaker Extraordinaire. Chapter 1. It was a Friday after school, and Mickey was hanging at an unusual angle, her hair almost brushing the floor beneath her as she tried to take even breaths. "And that's time, everyone. Come back up," said the firm voice of her gymnastics teacher. "Thank you," Mickey whispered under her breath as she slowly put herself the right way up. The truth was that Mickey was not a natural athlete. She was much more likely to be found sitting in the shade with a book than doing anything that involved physical activity. But at the beginning of the year, she had marched up to the school club's notice board and signed herself up to a weekly gymnastics class. And it was all because of her love of codes. Mickey really loved codes, more than cartoons, more than ice cream, not quite more than her parents, but it was definitely close. She cracked puzzles over her cornflakes in the morning, made up new ones as she went about her day, and solved them while she slept. Her favourite was Morse code, all those dots and dashes that could be sent by tapping a wall or flashing a torch. But she also loved the Caesar cipher, where you move the letters on a few places, then work out how far they've travelled. And she'd recently discovered a pile of naval flags in a cupboard at school. They looked like bunting for a school fete, but actually each flag was a coded message that could be understood across languages and countries around the world. So that was why Mickey had dedicated every Friday after school to gymnastics, because in the words of her hero, Hildegard L. McTavish, legendary codebreaker and spy extraordinaire, to break codes, you must be willing to see things from an unusual angle. What better way to see things from a new angle than while hanging upside down from a balance beam? Of course, Mickey hadn't actually found any hidden codes to crack yet, but she knew each day brought fresh opportunities for mystery solving, and she did her best to be prepared for any eventuality. As such, there were two books she always carried with her. A battered copy of Hildegard's memoir, Cracking the Codes, which told of her daring career as a codebreaker, and Mickey's own carefully compiled codebook, filled with all the tips, tricks, and pieces of information she hoped would one day help her to solve her first ever case. At the front of her book, Mickey had written out her own 3 key rules of codebreaking. Mickey's rules of codebreaking. Number 1, don't forget the obvious. Number 2, always look after your brain, e.g. sleep well, eat oily fish. Note, try to develop a taste for sardines. Number 3, always keep your eyes peeled. Codes can be everywhere. It was rule number 3 that would change Mickey's life that very afternoon. Chapter 2. As always, on a Friday afternoon, Rachel downstairs had picked up Mickey from gymnastics on her way home to the block of flats they both lived in. They were sitting side by side on the bus, and Mickey was craning her neck as she tried to read and answer Rachel's homework over her shoulder as they bumped their way through the city's winding roads. "It's a K," she piped up. Rachel looked up from her worksheet. "What is?" "The chemical symbol for potassium. It sounds like it should be a P, but it isn't." Mickey loved science. One of her best school trips was the time they all went to the science fair and got to try out lots of experiments. Ben Campbell had been asked to touch a thing called a Van de Graaff generator that gives off static charge. It made all his long hair stand on end, which Mickey thought was quite a bold look. "Thanks," Rachel said, writing the answer in her purple pen. "Haven't you got any homework?" Mickey shook her head. "But I could practice my codes." Rachel waved distractedly. "Well, that should keep you busy." Mickey liked Rachel a lot, but she didn't really understand the importance of codes. Mickey tried looking out of the window because of rule number 3, but they were in a lot of traffic and her window was currently completely taken up by the side of a huge lorry. She switched her gaze to the inside of the bus, looking for anything surprising, and saw a poster at the front of the bus for a storage company. It had a large red squirrel as its logo. There was a boy standing next to it with a huge musical instrument case that was almost as big as he was. Then, as she looked up, something very odd caught her eye. A piece of paper had been stuck to the bus above the window on her left. Mickey felt as if someone had squeezed her stomach, the way you'd wring a sponge. It was a code. She looked around the bus again, but no one seemed to have noticed it. Instead, they were all looking down at their feet or looking at their phones, which meant this code was hiding perfectly in plain sight. Mickey quickly pulled out her notebook and copied out the code. She could feel the blood pumping in her brain because she knew what the first line said already. It was a number substitution, where each number represented the appropriate letter in the alphabet, and it said, "Help wanted." Somebody needed her help. Mickey was about to tackle the next line when the bus arrived at their stop, and Rachel downstairs insisted they both get off. The rest of the puzzle would have to wait until they got back to their block of flats. Mickey hopped off the bus and in her hurry nearly tripped over a black cat that was sitting in the middle of the pavement. "Sorry," she said breathlessly to the cat. "Is a black cat crossing your path good luck or bad luck?" Mickey couldn't remember as she raced home to solve the rest of the code. Once inside, Mickey ran straight to the desk in the corner of her bedroom. She copied the code onto a big piece of paper, stuck it onto her notice board with a pin shaped like a ladybird, and then leaned back in her seat and stared at it. This was Mickey's favourite way of cracking codes, staring. But like a swan gliding calmly across the lake while paddling furiously under the water, Mickey's eyes were still, but her brain was working at top speed. The code for the second line was the same as the first. 3-1-14 space 25-15-21 space 3-18-1-3-11 space 3-15-4-5-19 became, "Can you crack codes?" "Yes!" Mickey cried. She definitely could. Mickey wondered how many other people might have got this far. Lots of people must have been near the poster, but not everybody looked up. Sometimes Mickey thought you could sit on a bus in fancy dress and no one would even notice unless you accidentally stepped on their toes. The next line of the code, FMFWFO space LJOH space TUSFFU -I, was much harder. Mickey stared, blinked her eyes, and stared again. But the key refused to spring to her mind. She rubbed her eyes and glanced at the clock just as she heard a key turning in the lock, then a familiar voice. "Mickey, love, I'm home." Her dad was back from work. He was bound to come in any minute and ask her about her day. Mickey was almost tempted to show him the code, but she felt like she was very nearly there herself. Hildegard certainly wouldn't have given up so easily. And success came through perseverance. Reluctantly, she covered up the code with a book. The last line and the missing piece of the puzzle would have to wait. Will Mickey crack the code? You'll have to read the book to find out. But it is so fun cracking codes and making up codes for your friends and writing secret messages that no one else can decipher, but only the people that have either the code wheel to crack the code, or you don't even need to make a code wheel. You could just write out the letters of the alphabet and put what each letter corresponds to. It could be a number, it could be another letter of the alphabet, or it could be a symbol. It's totally up to you. There are loads and loads of different codes out there, and you might have heard of some of them. They can use flags, they can use dots and dashes, for instance, the Morse code, which is a really, really famous one, which also can be done just by flashing lights. There's even mirror code, which is a cool one. If you can master the art of writing backwards, you can write secret messages that can be shown up only when you look in the mirror, when the words face the right way round. Anyway, in the story Mickey and the Animal Spies, Mickey manages to join Cobra, a group of animals who love to go around solving puzzles and codes and solving crimes ultimately. Now, you might have heard of Cobra meetings in the news recently, because the government also have Cobra meetings when they're deciding what to do, for instance, with the coronavirus and the strategy to take. And Cobra is actually an acrostic. So Cobra stands for Cabinet Office Briefing Room A. And that is the room in which many of the Cobra meetings take place, hence the name Cobra. Now, an acrostic is a poem, a word, a puzzle or other composition in which certain letters in each line form a word or words. So I thought it might be fun if we all tried writing some acrostics. So for instance, I've written an acrostic here for cats. Cute and terrifically soft cats, and you can see C-A-T-S is the beginning of each line. Now, words like and of don't even count. So you could put cute, awesome, terrific and soft, and that would still be cats. So why not have a go at making an acrostic for your name? Look, I've done Cookie here and made a crazy one. Crossing over orange kangaroos is exciting. What fun. I still need to colour in my kangaroos in orange, but their Cookie is crossing over a bridge with some kangaroos underneath. They don't have to be nonsensical. Depending on what your name is, it might be really easy or hard to make an acrostic. For instance, if you're called Ian, you could just simply have I am nice, though Ian might be a little bit biased. I've done another one for Cookie's best friend, Keziah. What you could do is write an acrostic for a friend's name and use their personality traits. So for Keziah, I've put kooky, entertaining, zany, inquisitive, awesome, and happy. That's Keziah. You can even do acrostics, which are poems. I've done one for Monster here. Mr. Monster is trudging around, over the hills, not making a sound, silently creeping, trying to scare. Everyone knows he's not really there. It's a bit of a nonsensical monster acrostic poem. So there you go. Why not have a go at making an acrostic of your name or a friend's name? It could even be a poem. You could illustrate it or just do character traits of the person. And also, why not have a go at making up some codes? Maybe you could do a code wheel like that, or just write out a little equals chart of what your letters of the alphabet are each corresponded by. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed listening to the book, and I hope you'll enjoy either coding or making some acrostics. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. I do hope that you will subscribe and spread the word that we're doing these videos every day, all throughout lockdown. See you later. Bye.